Before we start off, I have a few disclaimers. Number one, I think Tekken 8 Season 2 was genuinely bad for Tekken 8. Number two, I think Bamco's communication could be a whole lot better when it comes to their exact thought process and philosophy behind the game, and not relying on buzzwords and taglines that can easily be mean when something goes wrong, because it will. Number three, I agree with the general complaints about Tekken 8. All that to say, however, is that Tekken players just don't like Tekken 8, and that's fine. Where the problem comes in is that the community does not know how to handle not liking the game. I think the Season 3 balance patch is genuinely a good patch and there's still work to be done, but it's not going to be good to people that don't like Tekken 8 in the first place. I think a lot of people's issue with this patch is that it doesn't do enough when, according to the core game design philosophy of Tekken 8 that the devs have stated multiple times, it does exactly what the team wants it to do. But a lot of the conversation around the game seems to be more centered around failed promises going back to how poor Season 2 was received, but honestly nothing has changed since Season 1 when it comes to the core concept. Season 2 being the defense patch wasn't a lie, but more a result of poor communication and work delegation on the Tekken team's part, for which they apologized for and in ways are still paying for. Back to basics, a poor tagline as it is, was only about the process of balancing going forward as outlined in the blog post after the Season 3 trailer dropped. The patch was exactly what they said it would be with more to come. That's not a bad patch, it just wasn't what people wanted. The broader Tekken community has been trying to force themselves to like this game since the beginning, but because of Tekken's iterative design since Tekken 5, Tekken 8 was always going to be a hard sell. The same reason Tekken 4 wasn't as successful as its previous entries is the same reason why Tekken 8 is getting so much blowback from the broader community. Trying to do something different and arbitrarily changing things doesn't go well with the series or franchise that has always kept things pretty much the same from game to game. Other fighting games, due to their relatively drastic changes from game to game, have communities that can more easily separate themselves from the game in order to specifically focus on the game they're playing right in front of them. This isn't to say that Tekken 8 doesn't have issues, but what it does mean is that those issues are a lot louder than they would be if folks could somehow separate their identity from the series. By not figuring it out, it allows only one type of voice to be heard, and it's only going to be those that don't and won't enjoy the game on its own merit. I think the aspect that bothers me the most is the assumed malice from the developers, that they are trying to get money out of the player base by lying about stuff they know they want. The failed forward again meme is just an extension of the reactionary way Tekken fans have learned to cope with the disappointment they feel. The Tekken team just fucked up. Season 2 was a clear fuck up in the same way Leroy was in Tekken 7, or to go further back, not having a record function in Tekken 6 was a fuck up. These developers have the capacity to make mistakes. The fact that they aren't seen in that fashion means that the community is going to take the worst possible interpretation of the decisions being made, regardless of the context, because they are frustrated and don't have the means to offset that frustration. This is a situation that could be slightly alleviated with access to older games in the franchise or better online, but to some degree, the Tekken community is going to have to either accept the game or abandon the game. And I don't think either option is necessarily wrong, but the current environment definitely isn't it. It's gotten to the point that the Tekken community has been seen as toxic for the past few years. Yes, even during the golden years of Tekken 7. That's not to say that most communities have a clean slate, they don't. And it makes people not want to play the game at all. This will hurt the game when the game is in the place that the greater community deems a good place, because they know how the Tekken community reacted when the game wasn't quote unquote good. It doesn't excuse the poor way that devs like Michael Murray and Harada have responded to people online over the years, or Banco overall doing some shady stuff with the Fight Pass or anything like that. But it's always good to make sure you're checking where the energy comes from and where it's going, and is it productive to the goal you're trying to reach. A lot of this is tied to how hyperbolic online spaces are and how being reactionary is rewarded, because all in all, Tekken 8 isn't a bad game. And I don't think you can actually call it a bad game compared to actual bad fighting games out there, or even bad seasons of other fighting games. I just think that the issue is that the broader community, once again, doesn't like this specific game and is trying to force itself to like it, but then at the same time not engage with the game on its own terms. There's things to be said about a game being a product and a piece of art, and I don't think those things are necessarily irreconcilable, but in a lot of cases, folks do feel entitled to something they're going to spend $70 plus on. At the same time, the developers should have some say in what game they want to release, and that friction is being played out in real time. There's a weird battle between what is customer service and what is consumer entitlement that's going on with Tekken 8 and other fighting games too at this moment, that I don't think people have really squared in their own minds when they talk about their individual fighting games. I've heard people say that the Tekken team isn't listening to them, but if you ever listen to exactly what they want in the game, it completely goes contrary to what the devs are trying to do with the game. There's also this idea of who asked for this, and to that I'll say that's kind of a weird thing to say because people were complaining about in-state Tekken 7 specifically because it was getting pretty boring, and one could argue that that's because the game was getting long in the tooth at that point. There's also the case he made that certain characters by the end game were making the game boring. I agree that it didn't necessitate the changes being made in Tekken 8, but how the devs see things and how the players see things are always going to be different and conflict. I couldn't tell you what a hypothetical player-made Tekken 7 sequel would look like because it's impossible to nail down. Would Rage and its offshoots be gone? Folks seem to dislike anything that's not pure Tekken. Would sidestepping and backdash be super safe as it was in previous entries? Would the wake-up game go back to Tag 2 or Tekken 7? That's just entirely too much to consider, and it wouldn't satisfy everyone that enjoyed Tekken 7 warts and all. I'm still having fun with Tekken 8. I don't think the game is bad. I think it's good even. But even then, I still have my own gripes with the game. While I like strong aerial tailspin as a means of combo expression, it's another sign that the balance team doesn't know how to properly implement combo extenders even with larger stages to compensate for longer combos. That's an issue that's been around since Tekken 6. The changes to the wake-up system and getting hit grounded, mixed with how aggressive the game is, means that it's harder to get up off the ground than it was in older titles when Tekken 7 already solved that problem. The Season 3 patch itself missed Law, Victor, and a few others because there's a clear attention being paid to the toppest of tiers from Season 2. I don't think Tekken 8 is the best game in the series, but it's serviceable when you just play the game for what it is. But I don't think it's wrong to dislike the game, once again. I don't think it's bad to critique the game. But I do think that the reactionary and often bad faith means of critique will have and honestly has had a negative effect on the series going forward. Despite my feelings, it is very clear that Tekken 8 is a failed experiment, and I wish the community acted accordingly.